Kia ora tātou katoa. Today, or this Sunday, is Father's Day. And if you're looking for tips about fathering, well, I wouldn't suggest the Bible. Frankly, the examples aren't good. And the main Christian exemplars, Jesus, Paul, the rest of the disciples, either didn't have kids or don't talk about them. That said, here's a few biblical tips. Picking a favourite child from amongst your children is a very bad idea. Ask Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. It's not only bad during your lifetime, but in theirs and maybe their children's too. The corollary to that is try to be fair at all times. And, this isn't in the Bible, your wife or partner is a good person to consult with about fairness. That leads me into a brief comment on the whole dysfunctional system of patriarchy, which is bad for dads as well as for mums. Because there's a system of privileges and favourites. And this system led, in the biblical days, for wives vying for position and for the position of their children, and then siblings to vie with each other for position and privilege. The whole notion of equality of status, with dignity, affection, and respect in the mix, between a man and a woman, between two partners, between two parents, between siblings, didn't exist. The closest the Bible gets to that is love one another, from John 13. And that is one of the best parenting tips there is. Love your partner, wife, husband, and show it and live it. And then your kids might see the quality of love that makes for happiness and replicate some of it in their lives. We hope. Hope is a big thing in the Bible. Probably because life was tough. Short lifespans, poverty, war, fire and brimstone, you name it. So hope for a better tomorrow was something to hold on to. Remember, though, in most of the Bible, there is no belief in an afterlife. So hope was seen in trying to make things better for your children, through whom you would live on. Not too dissimilar from many thinkings today. And like today, the biblical characters seem to have more importance on inheritance of positions, possessions, and their power than on kindness, compassion, and nurture. And the consequences were a mess. Children seem to replicate their dad's actions more than his words. Not that words are unimportant, but I suspect it was the hug and the hospitality that spoke the forgiveness that the prodigal son remembered long after his dad was dead. The story with the prodigal is rare in the New Testament as an example of fathering, and many a sermon's been preached on it. The fathering bits that stand out for me are the dad's seeming ability not to take offence or to hide it well, his commitment to the relationship between the sons, and the difficulty of trying to both be loving to all and fair to all. To those who extol God as Father, you have some problems. God is quite erratic throughout the Bible, seemingly ordering murder and genocide, picking favourites, disregarding abuse, etc., etc. There is not much, if anything, recorded of God saying, "I love you just as you are," or "You are a wonderful human being, and I love your creativity and independent thinking." Nope, you won't find that in the Bible. For the affirming of children is rare in the Bible. which probably accounts for a lot of the dysfunctional relationships and ongoing violence. Children were largely nobodies until adulthood. If you're treated like a nobody, like a dog to be trained, then it is much harder when you're an adult to treat everybody as somebodies, including that silenced child who is still inside you. That reminds me, spare the rod and spoil the child is not a proverb about hitting kids. The rod or ruler, the old-fashioned kind of wooden ruler, is referring to the rule of law, the standards of law, namely the Torah. The proverb means if you don't teach your child the Torah, your child will suffer. In our secular context, maybe we could translate this as, if you want to influence your child's future, show them and teach them about love, its breadth, its beauty, and its cost. There's only one Bible story I can think of about an adult standing on the side of children and bearing the cost of it. And that's the gospel reading today from Mark with the well-known phrase, "Let the little children come unto me." The question to ask is, who's stopping the little children coming to Jesus? And the answer is not just the disciples, but the whole mindset about children being nuisances and nobodies, and best seen and not heard. And when adults get together, probably best not seen either. Another important thing in the story is Jesus touching and blessing them, which was a form of owning, identifying, and acknowledging, authorizing these children for life and its abundance. And lastly, Jesus, as Jesus would do, tipped the disciples upside down by saying that children are the exemplars of those who are part of the empire, the kingdom of God. You want to know how to be a disciple of mine? Look at the children. You want to be great? Act and think like a child. You want to know about the love I'm speaking about? Follow the example of children. And scholars and churchgoers have ever since tried to work out what this means. I think it ties in with a part of our tradition that says God comes among us as a child. And I think that takes a lifetime to understand. Our second reading today is a story. It comes from Bob Fulghum. It's a great story. He writes, "Soccer mania comes to our Seattle neighborhood every September, when children appear at our door selling chocolate bars to make money to buy their own uniforms. We know that soccer season is underway. These ill-at-ease visitors on the front door porch are rookies, both at the game of soccer and the game of door-to-door sales." Here's the tableau. There's a timid knock on the door, a small child, head down, muttering, hand holding out the bar of chocolate, as if apologetically returning something stolen. The child does not want to be there. The parent standing off in the bushes does not want to be there. And you do not need the chocolate. But since you were once the child and several times the parent in this scam, you are obliged to take your place in this initiation of the young into entrepreneurial capitalism, sports, and the American way. Besides, while it's true that you don't really need the chocolate, you want the chocolate, and feel so right to simultaneously help the younger generation. A 9-year-old daughter of a friend recently went through this coming-of-age ritual in a way that was both disastrous and triumphant. Since this was the first season for her team, Each child was required to raise money for uniforms by taking at least one case of chocolate bars to sell. A model of soccer team spirit. Everyone plays a part in achieving a goal. With no enthusiasm whatsoever, the girl accepted her case of chocolate in the same spirit she would accept pimples in a few years. Something to be avoided if possible, but endured if necessary. She wanted to play ball. She didn't know retail sales was a prerequisite, but so be it. Her mother and father did not buy the whole case of chocolate outright from her as she had hoped. So much for plan A. Her brother and his friends were no help, though they tried to diminish her inventory by stealing a couple of bars. And every member of her youth group also had chocolate to sell. She hid the chocolate under her bed for a week, hoping a fairy would take it and leave the money. No such luck. When the soccer league chocolate chairmother called the father to find out what was going on and why the child neither had come to soccer practice nor produced the chocolate receipts, the father's pride was hooked. He promised results. He gave his daughter an emergency-level intensive course in saleship and personal responsibility. She came to the door and practiced knocking, and he shouted, "Louder! Knock louder! I can't hear you!" until she could hit the door like the first wave of a police raid. He made her look up, speak plainly, and offer a 2-for-1 deal if necessary. When he finally got her to shout, "Buy this chocolate or I'll burn down your house," he figured assertiveness training had gone far enough. He marched her off with fire in her belly. She was pumped. The first house, her father gave her a "Go get 'em, pat," and then hid behind a tree. The kid stood at the door without moving for 5 agonizing minutes before the father realized that the fire in her belly had burned out. He rescued her, and they walked back home in silence. The father gave her a new pep talk about doing hard things and having courage and how it was when he was a little boy. He appealed to her place in the future of feminism. Real women can do this, okay? Okay, let's go get 'em. This time she wanted to go alone. Her father lurking around on the sidelines made her nervous. At the first hour she did her door pounding and then ran for it. Several neighbours wondered who pounded at their door and disappeared. Unable to go beating on doors, the child spent the rest of the afternoon in the garage, hunkered down in the back seat of the family car. She reappeared at dinner time, defeated. The father couldn't give up. Too much was on the line. Crucial time in the life of his child. He considered the power of advertising. Take advantage of location. The family lived in a university town in a neighborhood where football fans parked their cars on the way to the stadium for the Saturday afternoon games. Hundreds of people walked by. They would want and need chocolate. Father explained the concept of advertising to his daughter and convinced her that all she had to do was make a sign, and she could stand down there on the street for an hour before the game, and fans would buy all the chocolate she had. They made a sign. Help the Hillside School soccer team. Buy uniforms. $2. Great chocolate. The little girl was gone for an hour. Her father could see from the front porch and checked on her from time to time. She was selling chocolate, hand over fist. Yes, yes. She came home smiling, a triumphant smile. She'd sold all the chocolate, the whole case. She was relieved. Her father was proud of her, pleased with himself. What a team they made. They celebrated with a banana split with extra chocolate sauce. A couple of days later, their next-door neighbour, who'd been a party to this adventure in retail sales, came over in the evening at that hour when children are already in bed. He and the father sat out on the front porch and had a coffee while they enjoyed the autumn sky. The neighbour said, "I have something to show you. It's too good to keep, but you have to promise not to show it to your daughter." From out of a brown paper grocery bag, the neighbour took a folded piece of cardboard. "I found this in my garbage can," he said. It was the sign the father had made for the daughter. It still had "Help the Hillside School Soccer Team buy uniforms, $2, great chocolate." But underneath those words, in his daughter's crowned printing, was this footnote: "My father made me do it." This Bob Fulghum tale about father and daughter and chocolate sales is a fun story about fathering, albeit from the American cultural context, and it has a happy ending. But it also, of course, points to the deeper question of our father's influence on us, for good or for ill. Fathers, like mothers, not only share their genes with us, affecting what we look like, sound like, and are susceptible to, but also shape things like our confidence, or lack of it, our approach to challenges, and our view of people foreign to us. Confidence can be hard to measure. In this story, the daughter was probably assessed by her father as lacking the confidence to sell her chocolate bars. Yet the ending, "My father made me do this" sign, suggests the daughter had the confidence and courage to differentiate from her father. Similarly, some people present to the world a very confident demeanour, which can be an outward disguise of significant hidden anxieties. We are complex people. One thing we learn early is how to hide our fears. But like hide and seek, the point of the game is actually to be found, not stay hidden forever. Some of us hide too well, and our hidden fears eat away at our bodies and minds. We need to learn to trust. And that can be hard if our early developed internal belief systems tell us that trusting is not a good idea. What a child needs is the security of at least one parent or caregiver who is always there for them, always believes in them, and helps pick them up when they stumble. It's about being wanted and loved by those who parent us. It is from security that confidence and also generosity and hope can arise. The theory underlying this is surprisingly theological. We do not exist and then belong. Rather, belonging is integral to our existence. Our sense of self emerges in the context of belonging. John Tsoulis, a Greek Orthodox theologian, reflecting the tradition of Eastern Orthodoxy, Eastern Christianity, once wrote a book called Being as Communion, which said a similar thing. Tsoulis extrapolates into God thoughts the idea that the being of God is communion, communing. Or in other language, God is not an autonomous, individualized being, but being itself, like a connective, integrating, belonging energy, pulsating through life. This is the God that is relationship. The ethic arising from such theology, which is now part of many therapeutic and social work practices, is that individuals are part of systems, like families, and to treat, help, relate to the individual, it is best to work with a system in which they belong. Confidence in belonging forms the basis of how we face challenges. Will fear be our primary response, or are we willing to put aside our fear? The father in the Fulghum story tries multiple sales strategies in order to achieve his dual goals of selling the chocolate and inspiring his daughter in the ways of income generation. He doesn't realize, though, that his daughter will develop her own strategy, namely by humor, appeal to people's experience of being parented. Confidence in belonging also helps us to be hospitable and generous in both our thoughts and practice to new people and new ideas. This too is often about managing our fears. Just as showing and giving children the experience of love is vitally important, so is showing children and giving them the resources to manage their fears. Blessings to you this week.